So here I am again on this part. This is part 2. So I'm going to finish reading. Ruby's parents were proud that their daughter had been chosen to take part in an important event in American history. They went to church. We sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said. They that we sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said, that we'd all be strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble. And Ruby would be a good girl and she'd hold her head up high and be a credit to her own people and a credit to all the American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard. So they're giving me more details about how Ruby likes to go to church. They prayed long and they prayed proud. Meaning, they prayed long and they prayed hard. We prayed long and we prayed hard. Okay, I'm going to read this bottom part. On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry white people gathered around the French elementary school. The people carried signs that said they didn't want black children in a white school. People called Ruby names. Some wanted to hurt her. The city and state police did not help Ruby. The President of the United States ordered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. At least they're protecting her. Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experimented the kind of school day. She walked to the French school surrounded by marshals, wearing a clean dress and a bow in her hair and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks. As Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was alone, except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with, and to learn with, to eat lunch with. But every day Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to business of learning. She was polite, and she worked well at her desk. Mrs. Henry said she enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or um, irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom and empty building. That's sad. Sometimes I look at her and wonder how she did it, Mrs. Henry said Mrs. Henry. How she went by those mobs and sat here all by herself and yet seemed to relax and comfortable. Mrs. Henry would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or if she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school. Oh, I'm telling her she's gonna want to go to school. Then one morning something happened. Mrs. Henry stood by a window in her classroom as she usually did, watching Ruby walking towards the school. Suddenly Ruby stopped, right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. She stood there facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Mrs. Henry saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered that Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They they tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. I'm gonna stop there. So then we only have two more pages left.